We are here to once again recap the world in cricket. Another big week, headlined by a hell of a lot of rain in Brisbane at the Gabba for the third Australia versus India drawn test match. Here to recap it with me, as always, Cricket Australia commentator and former Sydney Sixers media manager, Maxi Bryden. Maxi, how are you, mate?
G'day, Tim. G'day to the viewers, mate. I'm doing well. It's such a bizarre week of cricket. We're, of course, recording this episode in Sydney where the sun's been out. It's been a beautiful summer so far. So turning on the TV and checking the score every 20 minutes and just seeing the whole of Brisbane underwater was a very weird thing. So disappointing not to get the result, but an amazing series so far and all set up for a huge Boxing Day test.
Yeah, and us Sydney siders in the Sydney test, we cop a lot of flack year in, year out about the amount of rain that comes around that test. And while it was devastating from an Australian cricket fan's perspective to see that drawn test match when we were in the box seat for a while there, it's a little bit of a, no, guys, look, it rains elsewhere in Australia too, not just Sydney. So hopefully we do get 5 days of sunshine in Sydney for that test. Also with us today, as always, a man with the best data in sport, random stats guy, Rando. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. Very good. As I mentioned, can't complain about the weather down here in Sydney. Hopefully it stays the same throughout the first week of January for that Sydney test. Otherwise, the Boxing Day test is basically the decider for this series. But it also puts us, I feel like, in a false sense of security because obviously we absolutely dominated that Brisbane test and feel like we're 2-1 up. But realistically, it's 1-1 and anything can happen in the next test match. So feeling very confident, but at the same time, we lose it and we're back to panic stations again.
Yeah, I know, mate. As we said last week, there's so much on the line in a drawn test match. It hasn't helped the cause there. So much to play for both teams. Guys, on today's show, we're going to review the major talking points from that Australia and India drawn test match. Do we need an all-rounder that bowls more, putting Mitch Marsh spot in doubt moving forward? And from the Indian perspective, Ravi Ashwin announced his retirement during the week. How does he stack up against another one of the spinning greats from India in Anil Kumble? The appeal for this week, Rando and Maxi are going to go toe-to-toe debating whether or not Steve Smith's latest century, drought-breaking century, locks him into the Australian squad for next summer's Ashes series. It's a long way away. Is he there? Is he not? We'll talk about it soon. We're going to have a look at the Big Bash, which started this week. We're going to drop our tips for the winner of the tournament, the top run scorer, and the top wicket taker. Rando's stats trivia. He collates some of the best data in sport. He finds the absolute best of it, turns it into trivia. Then, as I say each week, I spank Maxi at it moving forward. We then go into the best performances in world cricket over the past week to name our World 11 with the race to the mace heating up for the upcoming summer of cricket. Now, boys, let's get into the Australia v India review, and we'll start from the Australian side of things. And I think the talking point coming out of this test match was Mitch Marsh and his spot in this team. Obviously, a recent Allan Border medalist winner as the best player in Australian cricket across the 3 formats. But we saw the injury to Josh Hazlewood, who, I don't know, maybe it was chance, maybe it wasn't. We spoke about it last week. Perhaps he was rushed back in and we should have given Scotty Boland another go. I don't know. I'm not a physio. But Mitchy Marsh was only able to bowl, I think, 2 overs in that innings, deputising for him. So we saw Cummins, Stark, Nathan Lyon bowl these big overs off the back of that. So I'll start with you, Maxi, but not necessarily for the Boxing Day test, but for the, even moving forward, depending on how that plays out, the Sydney test or the upcoming Sri Lankan series. Is there pressure on Mitch Marsh? Do the Australians need to look at someone like a Bo Webster or a Sean Abbott who, can produce with the bat but can offer a lot more with the ball in terms of just sheer quantity of numbers? How do you see it?
It's a great question, Timmy, and I guess my opinion on this has really changed in the last week or so. I think that when you look at the big 4 Australian bowlers that we're picking every game when they are fit, they are so incredible, impactful with not only their ability to take wickets, but take them really consistently, where part of me used to feel that you didn't really need that all-round bowler because, they're just really there to give other people a rest. But I think that why my opinion's changed on this is just harking back to Cam Green, who, of course, is missing from this entire series. And what he has been able to do in the last couple of years in that Australian team, either batting at number 6 or batting at number 4, has been consistently chipping with wickets and chipping with really, really valuable overs at a high speed and just offer this side much more balance. So I don't think that this is Mitch Marsh's fault. I just think that we've really highlighted the value of having Cam Green on the side. And as such, I wouldn't mind looking at a guy like Big Bo who could just come in, bowl some solid overs. And I think the thing that people don't realise about him is that he's not just a bits and pieces player like Mitch Marsh when it comes to bowling. Like Marsh's bowling is solid, but it's never really been spectacular. Bo's genuinely been one of the better Sheffield Shield bowlers in the last couple of seasons. So I think there is pressure on Marsh, and I wouldn't mind seeing Bo make a debut at some point in this series, potentially the MCG as well, if that's still not enough time for Marsh's ankle to get better.
Yeah, it's one that we've butted heads on before, mate, around the quality of Mitch Marsh's bowling. And I know on this podcast last year we were chatting, Maxi, and I actually disagree. I think he's a really high-quality bowler, and I think he's underappreciated. And we saw what he did. I think it might have been in the first test. Took a few wickets there out of nowhere. I just think we've seen it. His body isn't holding up to get through the amount that we need him to bowl at certain times. Maxi, is he under pressure potentially at some point this series, or do you think he's safe for this series?
Again, there's so much context, I think, within this series that you need to weigh up when you're talking about these types of things. And even just the fact that we've lost a match now to rain, it was a draw. But India only need to win one of these next 2 games to keep the Border Gavaskar trophy. So the Australians really need to do everything in their power to win. And you could argue that bringing in an all-rounder for Marsh might weaken the batting. It could be seen as a bit of a defensive tactic where, if we'd won at the Gabba, maybe that would be the right decision. But I genuinely don't know what is going to be the best path for us to take 20 wickets and if that's going to need an all-rounder at these grounds. It's really going to depend on conditions and how long these games go. Sort of get the feeling the longer they go, the more we might need an all-rounder. And the MCG in particular hasn't been a ground that has taken 5 days of Test cricket of late. It's been a ground where games have been pretty action-packed. It's been difficult for batters. So I guess it's a long way of saying I've got no idea. I think it's really going to come down to conditions. But I think that for that reason, they're probably going to keep Bo around the squad just in case we see conditions that might look a little bit flatter, where the bowlers might need that support.
I think it was that Ashes test way back when, wasn't it, at the MCG, that was rated as a poor because it was, flatter than the Hume Highway. And I think it was Alistair Cook who couldn't get it off the square and he hit 200 or something like that. And since then, they've sort of repaired it a bit and said, no. And it's kind of gone the other way. So you're right, mate. It'll be what that pitch looks like. If a road's prepared, and we're probably not expecting, based on what we've seen in recent years, that it will be, but if there's a road, they might go, okay, there could be some runs here, we need overs, and that might dictate it. But a big watch on the MCG wicket. Rando, what about for yourself, mate? The big bias and Mitch Marsh, is he under pressure? Do we need another heavier bowling all-rounder, or how do you see it?
I think that we haven't really needed to lean on Mitch Marsh as much. Of course, only 6 overs bowled this whole series, but the way that the Indian batting team has been batting, we haven't really required his services. I mean, we saw in the Adelaide test, Nathan Lyon only get 6 balls because our attack was just troubling the Indians so much. So I don't think it's too much of a worry. Couple more things. I mean, Scott Boland probably coming back into the MCG test, he'll rile them up within. He'll get over and done with within 5 overs, going off his MCG record. Not to sound like a cocky Australian or anything, but that's just something that he can provide. I think having the Bison in there, you've got team morale. I mean, he walks into a room, I'm sure he lights up the change room. We're talking about Nathan Lyon last week and how if he was to get dropped, it'd be a bit silly because how much he means to the culture of the team. I think you get the same with the Bison here. That I don't know, Bo Webster, debutant coming in, what he's going to bring in terms of the culture side, and if he doesn't perform, then it's a bit of a risky carry. So I think Mitch Marsh, they might be waiting on him to use him tactically in a test match because at the moment I think our bowling pace has been just doing enough not to need him at the moment, rather than him not being used because of an injury on top of that. But I'm sure, of course, he has a bit of concern with an injury that might be the case, but I think it's been more on the tactics of Pat Cummins that we haven't seen Mitch Marsh bowling as much.
Yeah, and as you said, it's a decent sort of size turnaround through to the Boxing Day test, and we saw him bowl a few more overs earlier on in the series. So if he's carrying something there, only bowled the 2 overs there against India in Brisbane. So hopefully the extended period can get him to bowl a few more overs. The other question will be how many do they think Scotty Boland can get through as well? That might impact the decision. But look, time will tell. Boys, on to the Indian angle. Ravi Ashwin, one of the greats of the game, hung up the spikes during the week. Announced his retirement, and it begged the question after such a brilliant career for Ashwin, finishing with the joint most number of Player of the Series awards in Tests with 11. You know what? Before we get on to my question, Maxi, I'll throw it to both of you, a bit rude. Who is he tied with for most Player of the Series awards in Test cricket? Do we know?
That's an amazing question.
Yeah.
I don't know if I feel as confident in Rando and throwing out an answer to this, but I would have to guess that you think about like the great Australian teams, and that's probably where I would think that maybe a guy like Ricky Ponting, who did it in a fair few countries, that would be my guess.
Rando, what have you got for us? And knowing that if you get this is your first crack at the trivia, you can go 1-0 up against Maxi and perhaps stay that way forever. Who do you reckon?
Yeah, look, you've thrown the trivia question onto me, and it's definitely thrown me off. I'm going to try and stick with an Indian here, and maybe just play it safe with maybe a Sachin.
Hello, greatest wicket taker of all time, Muralitharan.
Oh,
Muralitharan, boys.
that was my second guess.
Yeah, and when Sri Lanka won, Mutaya was the player of the
Generally did the business
every time. Whereas when you look at those great Indian and Australian teams, there are so many greats who could have stolen it off each other. Guys, back to it. Ashwin versus Anil Kumble, another great. Who had the better career? Ashwin finished his career 7th on the all-time wicket-taking list with 537 wickets at an average of 24 and in an economy of 2.83. Anil Kumble, 619 wickets in 132 tests at 29.65 with a slightly better economy of 2.65. Maxi, I'll throw to you. What are your thoughts?
I think first and foremost, you've got to acknowledge that we're talking about two absolute giants of the game, right? And there's nothing other than greatness in this debate. I feel that as an Australian, I've always had so much respect for Kumble, not only because of his amazing individual achievements, but for his leadership. You know, he captained series down here, he took fifers. He's had an amazing career But I think the difference and why I might lean slightly towards Ravi Ashwin is for two reasons. One, Ashwin, underrated batsman as well, and scored so many frustrating runs down the bottom order. I think it was 6 Test centuries in that career as well, which is just remarkable. And at some point, I feel like he was probably one of the ICC top-ranked all-rounders for those abilities, and used to always do it against Australia, but it's more so that you associate Ashwin with this incredible period of success for the Indian teams. And I feel that his record of wins is probably slightly higher than Kumble's, as evidenced by that stat you just shared, Tim, around the amount of Player of the Series awards. So while they both had absolutely amazing careers and are going to go down as two of the greatest to ever pick up a ball and bowl it, I personally would put Ashwin just ahead, just because of the period of success that he played in. And that's not to say that he was the only man responsible for that, but this Indian team, they've conquered just about every single thing in world cricket, maybe with the exception of the World Test Championship. But Ashwin has played such a important part of that, so that's why he gets my tip. But gee, it's close.
By the skin of his teeth, he's given it to Ravi Ashwin over Anil Kumble. Rando, I'll throw to you, mate, and I think you might have some numbers around the two legends of the game.
Absolutely, and as Maxi alluded to, like, we're talking about two greats of the game here, and trying to say which one is better than the other. They're always miles ahead above the rest. Once again, the stat comparison has to come in here to try and see. In home tests, they played just about the same amount. Ravi Ashwin has a much better average at 21.57 compared to Anil Kumble's 24.88, a better strike rate as well. You look at his the overall test as well. Ravi had 26 less matches, so call it 52 less innings with the ball, still had more fifers than Anil Kumble, and the same amount of 10-wicket match hauls as well, with 8. And then you look into their own records. I mean, Anil Kumble holds the record for most wickets taken through LBW in Test history, and then Ravi Ashwin, most wickets taken clean bowled in Test cricket as well. So they're just such good players, such great bowlers. I've got Ashwin. I'm leaning towards Ashwin, and Maxi brought it up. I was going to bring it up too, because if we were going to bring in the all-round aspect for cricketer, Ashwin as a batter, such more reliable than, of course, Kumble, who does hold who is 6th for most consecutive ducks and ODIs as well, Anil Kumble. So I think more reliable with the bat. You'd rather have Ravi Ashwin in there, but if I could fit them both into a Dream 11, I would.
Yeah. All righty. Let us know in the comments if you're watching on YouTube or on our social media channels. SC Playbook Cricket on the podcast post. Who had the better career, Ashwin or Kumble? Keen to hear your thoughts on that one. Now, boys, time for the appeal. We're getting serious. Steve Smith's his recent 100, his drought-breaking century up at the Gabba, much needed, get himself back in form. He ground out that first 60-odd runs. It wasn't pretty, but seriously, once he got to about 65, 70 runs, there's been a 30-run patch there where he just did not look like missing a ball. And this was the Steve Smith of old. A wonderful innings, and particularly the back end of it, gritty with class as well. Now, boys, my question is the Ashes next year, 12 months away, that series. It is in Australia. Max, I'll start with you. Does that century lock Smithy into our Ashes squad? Or do you think between the Sri Lankan series to come, the cricket next year, the final 2 tests of this series, if there's a lot of failures and no more sort of big scores, could he be under pressure, or is he good to go for the Ashes?
For me, it's an unequivocal yes that Steve Smith will be good to go for those Ashes. It was fascinating hearing these comments that he was talking about after the game about the fact that he changes his technique each and every game, depending on the surface, depending on how he wants to play, and just what mastery this man has to have the ability to do that. Like, other cricketers have gone mad with minor changes, and this bloke is deliberately doing it every week just because of his enormous skill. And while I think, yes, absolutely, this ton has locked his place in the Ashes, I think at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter about what the selectors think, because I think that Steve Smith has really earned the right to do what he wants and to go out on his terms. And you mentioned the upcoming Sri Lanka tour. That's going to be a difficult endeavour for all of Australia's batsmen. It's not just Steve Smith. But I think that at the end of the day, it's whether Steve wants to play in the Ashes. And I think that this century might have just reignited that hunger for success, and also that hunger for that block of chocolate that he rewards himself with after scoring those tons.
So just to clarify, Maxie, we're not being ridiculous and saying that he gets 8 ducks between now and that series in Test cricket, however many tests there are. If he chips away at a few 10s and a few 20s and there's a few runs on the board, almost like what he's done the last 12 months prior to the century, I guess, that's all that's sort of needed for him to book his spot to the Ashes. Because I think he'll be looking at that series and going, when that ends, that's my time to retire.
Yeah, no, I think you're right, and I agree. For me, it doesn't really matter what happens between now and then. He's going to be there. He's going to be pulling on that baggy green cap when the England team roll out here with their baseball tactics, and he's going to be helping lift that trophy at the end of that series when we win 5-0.
Yeah, Rando, you still think there might be a little bit more needed from Smithy to book his spot there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that obviously a great 100 over the weekend in Brisbane, but of course there's still more question marks to be asked. A couple more test matches coming up for him to try and play his spot back in. Obviously, I think I totally agree with Maxi in the sense that he has the rights, he has the terms, but from a negative standpoint, I guess you got to look at a player just off surface value and just go, well, if he's not performing, does he earn a spot? Because it's a big test series, Ashes, coming up in Australia. Of course, Australia want the bragging rights. They want to win that test match, and they want to have the best players in their team. I mean, we talk about staple players like Marnus as well in amongst that crowd. A lot of players underperforming with the bat in Australia at the moment. I think Smith averages 24 in this series, and that's the second most. So I guess in that sort of things, he is safe. But there's a massive drop off, and if we're just going to keep accepting batsmen who are averaging around that 20 mark, I know the rest of the other top order batsmen aren't kind of providing any runs either. But we've got to find a way to improve that. Of course, Smith is definitely probably almost 100% locked in at this point. But, I mean, if we're taking him off like a Nathan McSweeney and we're seeing his form, it's kind of similar to Steve Smith at the moment outside of that one test ton. So how far will we take it? I guess it's more of a negative side from me, but it's very hard. I can already see you giving up. I've already reviewed a decision that's hit my pads, right struck in middle, and I've just gone and reviewed it for the sake of it. So you may as well give it to Maxi today. I'll save you the appeal.
The Shane Watson special. And look, I mean, the big thing is Sammy Constas, between now and the first ball of the Ashes next year, he's going to average about 120 across all formats. So there's one less spot already. I'm actually going to side with you, Rando. I think the reality is he has one score to his name. And 12 months is a long time. You know, you take that one score out and he hadn't done anything in a fair while, Smithy. So, you know, if there's runs behind him at Shield level in the back end of the summer and Smithy doesn't score, you know, anything too substantially for the rest of this series in particular, doesn't do anything in Sri Lanka, I think the pressure's on. I think he's one score in his final 4 innings in Australia this year from 100% locking it in. But a lot of these greats, they have one good score in them. As it stands right now, he's there. He's in that Ashes squad for sure. But I do think that I just want to say one more. One more. He's got 12 months to do it. I don't care. He has time. Just one more score to make sure it wasn't just a gritty one-off. One little stat I did find on Steve Smith, which I found very interesting. Scored his 33rd Test century at the Gabba. That put him second behind Ricky Ponting, eclipsing Steve Waugh on 31. Smithy did it in 200 innings. It took Steve Waugh 260 innings, Alan Border, who's on 27 tons, 265 innings, Punter, 287 innings, innings for his 41 tons. So Smithy has done that a lot quicker than those blokes around him, and I think it leans into just his ability to turn those 50s into hundreds, because I think of the straight 50s, he was a bit less than the other boys, but when he gets to 50, he knows how to convert. So, yeah, I thought that was a very fascinating one. Boys, moving on to the Big Bash. Started this week. We're 5 games into the tournament. I want some predictions. Should have done it last week, but we didn't, so be it. Maxi, I want the winner of the tournament. I want the top run scorer, and I want the top wicket taker. Hit us.
All right, winner of the tournament, I'm going to go with the Perth Scorchers. Boring and obvious, but I think historically we have always seen that the best bowling teams are the one who can not only finish the regular season on top, but go through and win the final. And I do think they've got the best bowling attack, just edging out the Brisbane Heat, who looked amazing and bowled fantastically well, despite half that bowling attack being out. So I'm going to go with the Perth Scorchers. You want the top run scorer. Yeah. And again, I'm going to be really boring and obvious, but we know that the best ground to bat in Australia, particularly in white ball cricket, is the Adelaide Oval. So I'm going to go ahead with their opener, Matt Short. Didn't do me many favours in that first game. I think he was gone for 7 off 6 deliveries with 1 boundary, and he was clean bowled by Adam Milne swinging across the line. But he gets to bat at that ground more than any other player, or as much as any other player in his team. So I'm going to go with Matt Short to do it. I think it might even be his 3rd year in a row. And the top wicket taker now, this is a really, really interesting one, and one I think we could probably debate until the cows go home. But I am going to go for Jamie Overton. I love what this big Englishman brings. I'm really hoping he's here for the entire tournament as well and doesn't nick off early to the ILT 20 or anything like that. But got a fantastic role, bowling the death overs, bowling the surge overs, and just got so much skill as well, as he reminded us in that first game. He spent most of this year not bowling, but he had amazing returns for England. So, yeah, going to lock them in. So, Perth Scorchers, most runs will be Matt Short, and most wickets will be Jamie Overton.
The big Englishman, Rando, what have you got for us?
I think that watching the Heat last night. I know it's a one-game basis, but I thought they were absolutely exceptional. Their bowling attack, despite being depleted, was crazy good. We saw last season when they had like Usman come back in and everyone like that come back on board. They looked basically unstoppable. They've won their last 7 games batting first as well. So when they win that toss, they better bat first because they love to bloody win when they can. But I thought that win against the Stars was really impressive and a bit of a warning sign early. But I know how up and down T20 cricket can be. One day you look amazing, the next day you could just a flop on a dime. So I think the Heat are at the moment on top. And then you look at obviously the Renegades last night. I mean, they are always tough to travel over to Perth for your first BBL game, but they absolutely destroyed that Hobart Hurricanes team, which I was expecting a lot more of. So maybe they could be a potential smoky as well in amongst there. But for me, Brisbane Heat, man, for top run scorer, I've been impressed with Marcus Stoinis, 230s in his last 2. I mean, I don't know him like from a bar of soap, haven't been in the same room as him, but
you picked your twin brother, shock.
I think he's been really impressive to start the tournament so far with the bat kind of saving the Stars at the moment. And if he has to keep doing that, I'm sure he's just going to keep racking up runs. Of course, Maxwell comes in as well into the team. That could take a bit, but a bit of a left field one going away from an opener. I think the Stoin might get a fair few runs this season. And then for wicket taker, I love taking like a sixes bowler. I think Ben Dorshus, I was looking at his record. He's taken a wicket in each of his last 8 games, something crazy like that. I reckon he could definitely take the reins as top wicket taker this season.
I saw Maxi Bryden get excited over there. He's the lead member of the chief of the Benny Dwarshus fan club. Yeah, all fair, mate. A good point around the Renegades. They're smokies. Outstanding bowling attack. That deck last night against Hobart, it wasn't bad, and they made them look second rate. Granted, there was some pretty ordinary batting, saved by the great Nathan Ellis from complete humiliation. A little bit boring for my first 2. I've gone with you, Maxie. I've gone the Scorchers. I just think their 4 quick rotation is genuinely world class. They've got waiting in the wings if they need him. Matty Kelly as well, who's also very much Big Bash standard. Adding Aaron Hardy there, he's an international bowler who I bowled recently for Australia as well. When he does come back into the team, I think the only probably concern there is just their top order at the moment. They've got international quality in Jennings and Allen. How are they going to go? They struggled early on. You know, we saw Allen come out against his Kiwi compatriot, pumped a 6 off the first ball, was clean bowled on the second ball. If they fire, they're going to be very hard to stop. But I do like the Scorchers. Matty Short as well. The big thing about Short is, you said it, Maxie, it is a boring pick, but they've just got the deck there in Adelaide, and you know he's going to play barring injury every game, whereas a lot of the other key batsmen that I liked and would like to go with, they're sort of coming and going a little bit. Availability is a bit of a concern. But my top wicket taker for the tournament, and this is hard because it's always a lottery with this attack, but it's back to the Perth Scorchers, and I've gone Jason Behrendorff, and the big factor behind that is he bowled at the death. It may have been a one-off. We don't know, but I think he's constantly one of the most underrated bowlers in Australian cricket. Granted, he's played a lot at the Australian T20 level for Australia in short form white ball cricket, but I think he started the tournament with a maiden over. Like, he's just that good, and he's always bowled those sort of more middle overs and early on in the game for the Scorchers, but AJ Tide didn't bowl at the death. It could easily change, but Behrendorff, with his quality, if he's getting the death overs for them as well, I think he's the man, and I think a little smoky over at Adelaide, Henry Thornton. Just with, Doggett might come and go. He looks like he's locked into that team, and we know we love Henry Thornton on this podcast, so I think he's a smoky there as well. Rando, time for a bit of trivia. Now, Maxie, I'll get in and I'll say, if you know the answer, mate, don't be polite, don't be kind, because I'm not going to do it to you. So if you know the answer, as soon as he finishes asking the question, you can go. Rando, hit us.
All right, we'll start with the first one. Of course, Tim Southey retiring from Test cricket this season. He was, of course, a noted big hitter who bowled a bit of pace on the side. He finished 5th all-time for sixes hit with 98. Which other Test cricketer is he tied with for that amount of sixes? He's not an Australian cricketer, so rule that out.
Ooh, huge question.
Hit.
I'm going to take a punt and say Brendan McCullum.
Timmy?
I will go with. It's a bloody punt. I'm going to go A.B. de Villiers.
It is neither of those players. Think Northern Hemisphere.
Can you? Well, England. So let's go. Let's go. Ben Stokes.
I'll go Kevin Peterson.
Unfortunately, I'm going to have to call it there, fellas. It was Chris Gale, the universe boss.
Chris
He hit
Gale.
the same amount of sixes.
Northern
He was going to
Hemisphere.
be.
Yeah,
Is West
Caribbean.
Indies Northern or
That's
Southern Hemisphere? Be tight.
I'm pretty sure it's Northern, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure it's Northern.
If I say it's on the equator, then you'll definitely get it.
If I could be bothered to cut that comment of mine out, I would, but I'm not bothered. So, I thought Chris Gale would be higher, to be honest. I did think of him straight away, but I thought he'd be higher at that list. So there you go. All right, mate. Hit us.
All right, obviously Sam Constas became the youngest Big Bash player to hit a half century at 19 years old and 76 days. Who was the youngest BBL half century maker before him?
Ooh. Huge question. I'm going to throw one out there and say Max Bryant.
I am going to say David Warner.
It is neither of those players. It was a fellow Thunder player, and he did score the half century in Canberra as well.
Jason Sanger.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Bang,
No!
got it.
I had it in my head, you idiot. Oh,
Beauty. Maxi
About
gets the
time.
chocolates.
About time.
I can be bothered to cut that out, so no one's going to do it. All right, boys. Well done, Maxie, you dickhead. All right. Part 2 of the show, the World Team of the Week. The part where we get you up to scratch on all the best performances in world cricket from the past week. We've scoured every major fixture, both domestic and international, to vote on the World Team of the Week. We then give our 3, 2, and 1 for the best performances in the world for the corresponding week, with the votes going towards our race for the Mace. The race for the Mace leaderboard. Each player's points go towards the tally for their country. Will determine the winning nation each month and keep an ongoing leaderboard all year round. And I reckon we'll do it at the end of the year, and that can be the first winner for the year. It's about our 4th episode, so it would technically be near enough the end of the month. But the criteria, guys, we put heavier weighting onto international cricket. And to avoid any major bias, as 3 Australians, domestic Australian cricket needs to be a superb performance to get into it. This week, it dates back to, I think, the 12th of December. I didn't update that. I'm an idiot. I think it was the 12th. Boys series, Rando, you've got the Bangladesh and West Indies first and second T20s and the third ODI. The New Zealand versus England third test. Max, you've got South Africa. You've also got Australia versus India, I believe. Maxi, South Africa versus Pakistan, ODI and second T20. And the Zimbabwe versus Afghanistan, 3 T20s and a second ODI. I have looked after the Big Bash series. We need 2 openers, 4 middle order batsmen, a wicket keeper, and 4 bowlers. Now, Maxi, I will start with you. Opening batters, who'd you find?
Thanks, Timo. Let's chuck it over to Afghanistan versus Zimbabwe, the second ODI to start with. And I've got Sadiqullah Atal, who scored 104 for the Afghans in that match. It was his first ODI ton as well. Cool. Then it was an amazing performance from South African Reza Hendricks with 117 off 63 deliveries and a super high scoring T20 against Pakistan for South Africa. And then 2 amazing performances as well from another Pakistani, Sayam Ayub. We talked about him a couple of weeks ago after some really amazing performances, and he scored 97 not out of 57 in that same game that Reza went big. And then in the ODI, he scored 109 off 119 balls. So amazing week for Ayub.
Some serious decks over there because that's some impressive hitting across the board. Rando, what'd you find?
Not too many massive scores for the openers across my series. We'll start with KL Rahul, though. 84 off 139 in that first innings for India at the Gabba. Definitely kept them alive and saved them from the follow-on. And then from Bangladesh side in the ODI, Sumar Saka, 73 off 73 balls in that ODI game that they scored, I think, 322. He also had 2 catches as well, but not as impressive as Maxi's players.
Yeah, Maxi's hot favourite here to take this one out. Boys, not a lot of great performances across the Big Bash, to be honest, but Jakey Weatherald, the veteran, top of the order again for the Strikers, 40 off 19 balls. And Sammy Constas, the rookie, the prodigy from Australia, 56 off 27, as you mentioned earlier, Rando. Pardon me. Look, easy ones there. The openers for our side this week, we have got Ayub and Hendricks. Maxi, your middle order batsman, what'd you find here?
In the middle order, I've got 2 for you. So I've got firstly Darwish Razuli, the Afghan who scored 58 from 42 in the second T20I against Zimbabwe. It was a pretty low-scoring series, so even though that strike rate might not jump off the page, it was a very impressive performance. And then I've got Asmatullah Omarzai, who scored 34 from 37, took 2 for 10, and also had 2 catches. He was man of the match as well in the third T20I. So some pretty solid performances. What about you, Rando?
For me, I had, of course, Kane Williamson, 156 for New Zealand in their third test against England. Of course, Travis Head, 152 for the Aussies in that first innings. Steve Smith's resurrection, 102 runs as well. Looking away from it, a couple of West Indian players of note. Amir Jagu, match-winning knock, 104 not out off 83 balls in his first ODI ever for the Windies, if you don't mind, chasing a 322 target. What an innings that was. And Rovman Powell, 60 off 35 in the ODI. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to get the Windies over the line in that game, but still a brilliant knock with a 200 strike rate.
Yeah, some fair knocks there, matey. I've gone with Cooper Connolly. First game back from injury, I believe, for the Scorchers, 65 off 51 balls and 1 for 18 off 2 overs for the Scorchers. Moe Enriquez, another wily old veteran, 53 not out off 27 deliveries. And then Maxi's boy, Jamie Overton, 45 not out off 35 and 2 for 28 off 3.4 for the Adelaide Strikers. Boys, our middle order consists of Kane Williamson, Steve Smith, Travis Head, and Amir Jagu. Wicket keeper nomination, Maximus. What have you found? Who have you found?
Really hard to split these 2 players because Heinrich Klaassen is both of them. So he had an amazing week. He scored 86 off 97 and then he scored 97 off 74 in those ODIs. They won 1, they lost 1, but geez, he is a very impressive cricketer.
Yeah, we love a bit of Heinrich Klaassen on this podcast. I feel like we're talking about him every week. Rando, who'd you find?
Yeah, unfortunately, my players couldn't match Klaassen there, but they still had a good crack. Alex Carey, 70 in that first innings for Australia, followed by 20 not out in the second innings. He had 5 dismissals as well, 4 catches, 1 stumping. And Rispar Pant, 9 dismissals, which was the exact same amount of runs he scored the whole match as well. I thought just in terms of a wicket-keeping standpoint, very impressive.
Yeah. I found Jimmy Pearson, 72 not out for the Brisbane Heat, on top of the order of 56 balls. Timmy Seifert, the Kiwi, over in the Big Bash for the first time, 37 off 19, including 3 catches, and a 55 off 42 for the Renegades. Pretty impressive hitting, but, boys, an obvious one there with 2 ridiculous performances. Heinrich Klaassen comes into our team this week. Our bowlers for the week, Maxi, who'd you find?
Just the one for me, Muhammad Nabi. Mostly did it with the bat, to be honest. 44 off 27 and then 1 for 13 from only 2 overs in a T20I. Just the typical all-round performance from the president.
Tidy as ever. Rando.
For me, a couple of bowlers that stood out. Mitch Santner, I thought one of the best of the week. He had 76 and 49 with the bat, and then with the ball took 3 for 7 and 4 for 85. He was the player of the match in that third test between New Zealand and England. Next up, Jasprit Bumrah. He just gets better and better and better. He's actually the 3rd fastest bowler to take 50 wickets on Australian soil. He took 6 for 76 in that first innings and 3 for 18. And then the last one, Bangladesh, Mahedi Hassan, 4 for 13 off 4 overs. He also hit 26 not out off 24 balls in that first T20. For Bangladesh, they were protecting a target of 148, which isn't usually enough to get the job done usually, but brilliant bowling from Hassan. He had 15 dot balls in his 24 ball spell.
Yeah, that is absolutely elite performance there from Hassan. For myself, Lockie Ferguson, the Kiwi, 3 for 24 off his 4 overs for the Sydney Thunder. But Will Sutherland was the standout in mine. 3 for 14 off 3 overs. Across the 2 games for the Renegades, he had wickets. He had 5 wickets across the 2 games, and he chipped in with the bat as well. So yeah, I've gone there. So boys, our bowlers this week, Will Sutherland, Mitchell Santner, Mahedi Hassan and Jasprit Bumrah. Look, Bumrah, we may as well just copy-paste him in. If he's playing cricket that week, we'll just no need to change his name up. He's got to be, and we know what he did with the bat to save that, avoiding the follow-on as well. So, mate, he did at both ends, Jasprit Bumrah. All righty, our 3, 2, 1 voting for the week. Maxi, who tops it off for you?
Tough to split them this week, but I'm going to vote in favour of matches that had a result and discount some of that Australia versus India test. I shouldn't really have to justify why I'm voting like I am, but I'm going to anyway. And so for 3 points, I'm going to go to Mitchell Santner. Amazing all-round game. Did it with bat and ball. Really loved his performance and just continued on what he did in India last month. So I'm going to give him 3. 2, I'm going to go with, and these were hard to split, Kane Williamson, again, just turned the clock back, a real big boy ton, and a victory for his beloved New Zealand, and 1 point to Reza Hendricks as well. Amazing. I love seeing centuries in T20 cricket. They're super hard, and his was a big boy as well, 117 off 63. So Santner for 3, 2 to Kane, and 1 to Hendricks.
Very good. Rando, what about for yourself?
Same sort of spectrum for me. I thought Santner was amazing with the bat and the ball. That 76 was huge, followed by that 49 and then 3 for 7, 4 for 85 as well. Quite incredible. Second up, Kane Williamson, big knock of 156. New Zealand obviously struggling in their 2 test matches prior against England. A great win, and that was set off the back of the bat by Kane Williamson. And number 1, I'm going to give it to the debutant, Amir Jagu, 104 off 83, chasing 322 in an ODI on your debut, if you don't mind. So he gets my 1 point.
Yeah, not bad going there. Mitchell Santner gets the 3 for me as well. Reza Hendricks gets the 2 votes for myself, and Siam Ayub gets the 1 point over at Pakistan. Where does that leave us, boys? It's the Kiwis and Mitchell Santner. They're getting 3 votes there. So that leaves it with Santner 3, Williamson 2, and Reza Hendricks 1. The Kiwis, the Black Caps, they lost the series, but they've shot up the leaderboard in the race for the Mace. They'd be thrilled about that. They probably don't even care about the series loss after that. India and New Zealand equal first on 5. England and Australia on 4 in second are joined by South Africa on 4, Pakistan on 1, and the West Indies on 1. It's heating up, boys. It's heating up. Fellas, we'll wrap that up for the Cricketers Playbook podcast this week. Maxi, thank you very much, mate.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Rando. And thanks to all the listeners.
Rando, cheers, mate.
Pleasure, boys. Thank you for the listeners as well. Keen to have a bit of a week off before the next one.
Yeah, that's it, mate. We'll be back after Christmas, probably between that Chrissy and New Year after the Boxing Day test, I reckon, loosely. We'll enjoy our Chrissy. I hope everyone else out there has a good Christmas as well. Check us out on our socials, SC Playbook Cricket. We're on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, whatever. It's up to you. Cheers, guys. Have a good one.